She talks. She listens. She cares. She's Joyce Oglesby. In today's ever-changing world, Joyce takes on the hottest issues. She fights for what's right in America.
I wanna leave a legacy. How will they remember me?
Just Ask Joyce is brought to you by Guaranteed Total Construction, Window World, Nan's and Crafts Florists, Squire Boone Caverns, and About Face Spa and Salon. Now, just ask Joyce.
And leave that kind of legacy.
And welcome to Just Ask Joyce. I'm Joyce Oglesby, your Family Life Fix-It Pro, getting you fit for life and love today. It's going to be a great show again because you know who's back? Dr. Dennis Hensley, and we call him Doc because you have seen him, so now he's your friend too. He's going to be back, and he's going to be talking about a very interesting topic today for you women. You know, we all do things because we want applause, don't we? Well, I know not all of us, but some of us are guilty of it. We want applause. Why are we desperate for that applause? Well, Dr. Hensley is going to talk about that today, and actually, he did some research in how to stop living for the applause. Help for women who need to be perfect, all right? But then in that research, he has come up with a way to incorporate it in Pseudonym. This is a novel that you are going to be so impressed with. He's going to talk to us about that today, so you do not want to miss this show. And then during the email Window World mailbag segment, we're going to address what is a parent to do with a daughter who has a new flame they don't like. They don't approve of him. So now what, parents? Well, we're going to talk about that on this show, so make sure you stay tuned for that. But without further ado, let's go to Doc Hensley, because you know I like to spend a lot of time with Doc. Welcome back. You liked me so much, you came back.
I will always come back.
Did I make you a hero last time?
You did. I took flowers home to my wife that you gave to me, and she enjoyed them.
All right, that's so awesome. All right, Doc. You know, I love this topic because so many of us women are guilty of this. You know, we feel like we need to be perfect in this imperfect world, and of course we know no one was perfect but Jesus Christ. But why is it that women, you think, have this nature about them?
Well, first of all, if you go back to the 60s, they were sold a bill of goods. I mean, many times you come on, I am woman, hear me roar. Right. So here's Helen Reddy telling them everybody can do it. Then there were advertisements where you could see, oh yeah, I go to work all day and I come home and I fry up the bacon in a pan and I never make my husband forget that he's a man and I can do everything to all people. And there were women who tried to buy into that and trying to be 3 and 4 women enrolled into one. It was just ridiculous. You have to work a 20-hour day and have a nervous breakdown. And so what we find out is that they were trying to fit an image that was not really correct for them. They didn't have to be all things to all people. They had to be themselves, but they didn't realize that, and they bought into it too hard and judged themselves too harshly. And then when they woke up, it was too late. They'd reared people who were just absent mothers and not there, and they passed it on to other generations. So it's a thing where we're having a reflex from that now and coming back on what do you really want out of life, and what do people need from you that you truly are good at giving to them?
Well, it's interesting, this book, Pseudonym, which, you know, I think I'm intrigued by the title, but you actually wrote this 20 years earlier,
right,
but didn't publish it. Now, why the backlog there?
I was very honest in the book. I have my main character, Sheila, and she's a suppressed woman. Her father, first of all, thinks that white girls need to go to college, all right? And she wants to do that. And a husband who takes over and says, well, let me go to college and we'll get you through later, and doesn't fulfill that promise, which happened to many, many girls, those sort of situations. So I thought if I could put this in a fictional story that people could identify with, then they would say, all right. The problem was the publishers back in those days, particularly Christian publishers, weren't ready for that. They said, we don't want to talk about divorce, we don't want to talk about gambling problems, we don't want to talk about any of these heavy situations where women are not submissive. And I said, this is reality. This is what really, really needs to be addressed if we're going to be honest with how we deal with people's troubles and problems. So the book languished in my office for about 20 years. I brought it back out and read it, and I thought, no, this book is really good. So I had an associate, Diana Savage, and she does a really good job of running my webpage. I said, proofread this as a female and look at this and see what you think. And she said, the story's great. It's 20 years out of date for technology, some things like airport security. She said, I could work with you on that and update that and maybe talk a little bit more about the female perspective. So we revised the book with her help and gave it to a publisher and said, the time's right. Women really need to understand that they have a right to stand up for themselves.
So I'm guessing that the research in this one kind of just dovetails right into Pseudonym.
Yes, because what I found out was that when I was researching the nonfiction book, there were women who really did know how to understand. For example, if they were Christians and they said, I want to be submissive to my husband, I better marry the right kind of person where we can be partners. I'm not, someone you're going to take advantage of. But I do want to understand that if you're doing the best for me, I want to encourage you. And that's a partnership. That's not a submissive situation where it's negative at all like that. So I tried to show a positive aspect where this girl is situation from tradition and it doesn't work. And see, this is what Christian values really are all about. It's about discovering. And she has talent. She has a real talent. She's a writer. She's very creative. And that sort of suppressed thing is what a lot of women coming to writers' conferences have told me. I didn't really have that kind of encouragement. Nobody in my class told me that. My family didn't tell me that. And now you're telling me that what I'm writing here really does have ability. That's the first time I've heard that. So I wanted to put a role model out there. This can be done. But she has to assume another ego. She has to take on another. That's why the book is called Pseudonym. She assumes her pen name when she has to come out of her shell like that. And a lot of women are thinking, yes, I have to be a new me. And that's what the role model part of the book is all about.
Well, we do, as women, I think, try to be someone that everybody needs, and so I think that we lose our identity sometimes as women about who we really are. I mean, for a long time, I was Webby's wife. At church, and now I think he's just as Joyce's husband. But we lose our identity sometimes trying to be everything for everyone, and we just forget that we need to be who we are, who God has designed us to be.
And I think we can be encouraging to each other. My wife has a totally independent career. She works at a children's museum as a docent and a helper in that, and that's her identity. She's an officer in our neighborhood association, and she, of course, is still a wife and a mom and a grandmother. But by the same token, she's very encouraging to me. She'll say, well, how can I help you with typing some of your manuscripts, or how can I proofread some of these things, or giving you feedback, or going along to writers' conferences. And I'm hoping that we're doing that and finding a balance where you have your independence so that your nature comes out. And by the same token, I'm dependent on you. We like being codependent. It's really fun. We have our different strengths.
It works better in a marriage, doesn't it?
It does.
It always does. Well, by and large, the readers of your novel have posted marvelous reviews, of course, and I don't know of a book that you've written yet that hasn't had those kinds of reviews. But, there have been a few of your reviewers who said it's a little bit edgy.
Yes.
But isn't that good these days?
Well, I think it's time for us to wake up and face reality and not say, let's bury our head in the sand. This is not an ostrich society that we're situating like that. No, no, no. What we've got to say is this reality, and how do we face it, and how do we deal with it? And I know it's uncomfortable sometimes. What people write to you at your show, it's uncomfortable to face those. But until you do, the reality of how to fix it doesn't come to the surface. So I faced that, and I showed things, like improper sex situations like that, and sometimes being suppressed in what your real nature should be. That's part of what the book does. And by writing in fiction, people say, well, I can step into that story. I can identify with that. So I didn't pull back. And I realized that was uncomfortable for some of the readers, but it's time for us to face those realities.
Well, it is. And you do an extraordinary job of addressing things like dignity for women and equality in marriage, and creating that individual independence. So I applaud you for your book, and I'm going to learn how to stop living for the applause. So these books are available online?
Right, they are. Right.
All right, guys, there you have it. Dr. Dennis Hensley, I told you it was going to be a great topic. And really, for men or women, we all could learn from him. We'll be back after the short break. Don't go away.
You're watching Just Ask Joyce, where real life and family values connect. Just Ask Joyce is brought to you by Guaranteed Total Construction, Window World, Nan's and Crafts Florists, Squire Boone Caverns, and About Face Spa and Salon.
Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm Joyce Oglesby, your Family Life Fix-It Pro, and I can fix a relationship problem that you might be having, but I can't if I don't know about it. So I need you to write me, just askjoyce@gmail.com. Of course, go to my website, check out my resources there. Maybe you will want some of my books. They will help you in your relationships, whether it's marriage or maybe your personal life. But just check them out, and there's some nice kids books there as well. So just check those out, justaskjoyce.com. All right, I want to go to our Window World email bag, and this is a situation that probably many parents find themselves in sometimes, but how do we remedy that? Well, it takes a little strategy sometimes. This listener says this: our 18-year-old daughter has been involved with someone for almost 3 years, and we really don't approve of him. She is college bound. He has his GED and a master's at video games. He has never held down a job more than a month at a time. His parents enable his laziness. We have tried to make her understand he's not a good fit for her. How do we redirect her thinking? Oh my goodness. All right. Well, how do you redirect love is what you're asking. And of course, she understands, or she thinks, that she's in love with this guy. So how do you derail that? Well, you ask yourself that. Who could talk you out of loving your husband, right? It's hard to do, isn't it? Especially at such a young and impressionable age. And I say young and impressionable. She's 18 now, but she was 15 when she got involved with this young man. And that's 3 years ago. Do we think, I think that parents sometimes are fooled into thinking that our kids can make those kinds of decisions at 15. I know years ago they used to get married at 15, and you think, what? I couldn't see my daughter marrying at 15. But, you know, we sometimes allow them to make some poor choices as parents. And so maybe, you know, seeing him for 3 years might have been a little bit more than she could handle 3 years ago. And now she's in a relationship that seems somewhat controlling to me, all right? But what is, I think you're going to have to find out the source of that control. But here's what I would recommend. So this is Joyce's fix for you, all right? Ask questions. Ask questions, you know, ask questions about the present. You're going to inject some past in there, absolutely, but what has his career interest been thus far? Talk about that. Is he looking for a job tailored to his skill set? Ask that. And what is his skill set? You know, if he likes computers, obviously video games, you know, are not always computer oriented, but you know, you just have to play on them. But is he that? Is he, you know, maybe IT material? Talk to her about that. If she can't answer those questions for you, she's likely going to try and answer them for herself some other time when you're not around. And then ask about the future. What do you see for your all's future? I mean, do you have you talked about plans? Are you thinking about getting married? Are you going to have children? You know, what does that look like for you? And is he going to go to college? Is he going to go to, you know, just talk to us. No, don't make it confrontational. Share your concerns. Number two, share your concerns. When you start having children, and you will, you know, is he going to stay home with them, or and you going to work, or are both of you going to work, or how are you going to live as a married couple? And I would encourage marriage, all right? Who will keep the lights on if it's just you working and he's home, or vice versa? Do you want to live with his parents? Because if he's just going to settle for a GED, and I'm not, listen, if you have a GED, I am not dissing that at all. I encourage everyone, go and get your GED if you never finished high school. But don't let it stop there, you know, but understand that a GED only comes with certain job opportunities. And so you have to look realistically. And have you thought about a budget? Ask some real adult questions, because right now she is an adult. Number three, do your homework. Parents, so many times we just kind of dive into our kids' problems and we haven't really done our homework. Share some statistics with your daughter about, you know, maybe what opportunities are out there for someone who just has a GED, you know, and they're not advancing their education. So share some of that knowledge with them. talk to some of his friends and find out, a little bit about his past, or maybe some of his present. Do your homework, check his Facebook page, see what kind of postings he's doing. Question her about these, not confrontational, because if you are confrontational, you're going to absolutely shut her out to start with. But then this one might surprise you. Partner up to help her. Partner up to help your daughter. Say, how can we help? If this is going to be someone that you're going to love for a lifetime, that you're going to share memories with, and you're going to develop a history with, and you're going to have our grandkids, then how can we help you with this? Because some of these issues are concerning for us, and I think they will be, if not yet for you, they will be down the road. So let us help you. How can we encourage him? Invite him over to dinner and establish a relationship with him. Let him see what you're about. Let him see how family really works, a working family really works, and have Dad invite him to the job with him sometimes if that's possible. But what you have to do is understand that once she finds that you're on board with this guy, she might be off board with him. Sometimes that works. The more we say don't, the more our kids do. That is a rule of thumb we have to remember. But again, I'm going to go back to, you really need to find out what control this young man has over your daughter. There is a control, and I hope that it's not a controlling issue where she's going to bring home the bacon and he's going to sit and watch video games. Not much of a future there. I understand your concern, but I know sometimes you just can't talk them out of love. So we'll be back after this short break. Don't go away. Thank you so much for joining me today. I want to go back to this email with the parent that is concerned. Of course, both parents are concerned for this daughter. Sometimes, as my quote for the day, you're going to see, it'll click with you immediately. Kicking against the goad only inflicts more pain and suffering. Kicking against the goad only inflicts more pain and suffering. Understand that our kids are going to disappoint us. They're not always going to make the choices that we feel like they should make, but they have to understand an unconditional love that we have for them. Doesn't mean that we just give them free will. Doesn't mean that we put our blessing on everything they do. And I think that that's important, that we parents have to understand. They don't need our blessing for mistakes. They don't need our blessing for poor choices, but they do need our love and our support. And I don't mean financial support. If you financially support them, as this young man's parents are, and encourage laziness or encourage poor choices, then I think that we are just shooting ourselves in the foot along with shooting them as well, so to speak. Right? So I just would encourage you, find a different strategy, because what you have done with your daughter so far has not been working. And so find a different strategy. Make sure that you're not pushing against the goad, because when we do that, it's only going to inflict more pain and suffering, and it might be against you, but of course we know her in the long run. Stick around. We're going to come back and we're going to close out this dynamic show, and I have a special little flower for you to look at from Nancy Craft. Don't go away.
A foggy day in London town had me low, had me down. I viewed the morning with such alarm. The British Museum had lost its charm.
Hey, I'm Ryan, just singing in my shower like I always do. I wanted to personally invite you to check out my GoFundMe page with the link right here to help me get to London and study at the London Academy of Music and Dramatic Arts, my dream school. Every little bit helps, no matter how big or small. And maybe in the future, I'll sing some more songs for you. Until next time.
Thank you so much for joining us today. I saved the plant for the end. Nanzencraft always does a beautiful job of adorning the Just Ask Joyce set, and no different today. This is a Zanzibar gem or a ZZ plant for something simple, all right? So if you call them and say, I want one of those, tell them you want the ZZ plant. Okay, let me just tell you, because actually I brought this one from home because I wanted to show you. I have had a plant, this plant, since my birthday last year. Webby gave it to me, and I have just loved it. This is a plant scrubber, so it scrubs the air of allergens and things. So if you have someone in your home that has allergies, get them a plant scrubber. Go online and check out what they have. You don't have to get the ZZ plant, but this is just such easy care. Once a week watering, and if you go 2, they're okay, but don't overwater. All right, but anyway, they loved them so much, our daughters, that we gave them one as well. So you can do that just by checking out nanzencraft.com and tell them Just Ask Joyce sent you, would you? You know, Doc Hensley talked about earlier in the show about how women want applause. What is it about us that we feel like we need applause? And you know what, guys? You are the same way. We all want that credit that we feel like we deserve, and we want recognition. But I want to remind you that the Apostle Paul in Philippians 2 tells us, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interest of others. Don't you like that? Apostle Paul was great. He's my hero in the Bible. I just love him. But when we take the focus off us, then it makes it so much better for everyone concerned. Don't wait for applause. The only applause that you have to worry about is Him. You worry about the applause that we give to God, and then He gives to us. And that's really that's what we have to be accountable for. You do everything else for His glory, life will work out pretty good for you. I'm Joyce Oglesby. Visit me at justaskjoyce.com. Send me your email, and I will help you with your relationship question. In the meantime, I'm in battle for His cause.